Welcome everybody. Good morning to our friends joining us from the US, and good afternoon for those of you joining us from Europe. For those of you who aren't aware of me, I'm Colin Nelson, Director of Strategic Consulting at Hype, and this is the second of a series of 3 webinars on the basics, the fundamentals, the kind of key principles behind online collaborative innovation. And today we're going to be talking about driving engagement, a key foundation for successful programs, and a key challenge and headache for some organizations that have been doing this for many years still. For those of you who perhaps aren't clients of Hype, who perhaps haven't spoken to me before, just a brief introduction about myself. I've been in the industry for around 7-8 years, working for typically large and complex organizations, primarily in the US, the Middle East, and also in Europe, helping organizations on the people and process side of collaborative innovation, essentially ensuring that our clients drive significant business value from their investments in innovation management software. Before that, I worked for Fujitsu Services, who are an IT services company in the UK, and I had a number of roles, including information management and knowledge management, and also some innovation and new product development type roles as well. And before that, a key foundation for my career was to work for 2 years in market research, where all I did was to write and ask questions of a variety of audiences. This has been incredibly helpful in my innovation work. As many of you will be aware, a lot of innovation is now very much question-focused. So a little bit about Hype and the company, for those of you who aren't aware. We've been in business just over 11 years. We have about 90 employees worldwide. Our head office is in Bonn, Germany, as Christoph mentioned, and we also have an office in Boston, Massachusetts in North America. All we do is innovation management software and services. So we specialize in this field, we've always specialized in this field, and we feel that we have a really good view on this that we can share to interested parties and share best practices and experiences, of which this webinar is a part. The software that we have is actually a variety of flavors, but it's spread across 170 different organizations worldwide, and actually includes a lot of our core best practices built into the software. So we take what we've learned from people and process experiences, from change management, build into the software wherever possible to help ensure that organizations drive engagement and find the business value that they're looking for. It's clearly configured, adjusted to every organization's people, process, and structure. And of course, culture and your objectives of your innovation program also play a key part, and we'll touch upon those elements today. So the sorts of organizations that use us are very diverse in nature. Many are very large, complex organizations. We have some smaller clients as well. But anywhere where there's a need to bring disparate groups of people together to share opinions, share ideas, solve problems together, we can help. So a little bit more about the webinar that we're going to be talking about today. Who's it for? Well, I think a lot of people can benefit. Certainly those that are new to online innovation will certainly find this of use. One of the first challenges that any organization investing in enterprise innovation needs to encounter is how do we get people to participate and engage at a high level of quality. So if you're looking to establish a new program, this will be something of significant benefit. But perhaps you have a program already. Perhaps you've been working in the space for a number of years. I'm yet to find an organization that's perfectly happy with the level of engagement that they have. So again, there will still be tactics and experiences that even if you're an experienced innovator, experienced in using idea campaigns and running innovation management software, you'll still benefit from some of the insights we share today. But let's start off with some fundamental assumptions. Let's get everybody on the same page. Firstly, I think everybody that's on this call will be interested in getting more people involved in the innovation agenda. More people collaborating, more people sharing, more people asking questions of the organizations, suppliers, and partner communities that we all have. I think there's a recognition, increasingly so, that collective expertise coming from disparate viewpoints is a very powerful asset. If we can bring different opinions together, we can help boost the quality of our innovations and the collaborative challenges that we face. We certainly need to make better use of our people and knowledge, and this is the old knowledge management argument. Much of our expertise and experience walks out the door at 5:30 every day, and it's hard for us to know actually what our organization knows and to apply that in the best way possible. So we want to use this resource and develop more innovation in the best possible way. And so the reaction to these key assumptions, these key things that I think ties us all together, is we want to give people an ability to share ideas and insights with the organization, with their colleagues, with potentially partner communities as well, and even customers. We want to encourage extensive collaboration between our employees. A lot of innovation comes from people coming together with these different viewpoints. So unless people are collaborating, we're not going to satisfy the level of innovation potential that actually exists in our companies. We'd like to tap into hidden knowledge pools. Specifically, if you work for a large company, these will exist in all kinds of different areas of the organization, perhaps different countries, perhaps different departments, people with insights and knowledge and experience that you can't even comprehend. Unless we start asking them questions, it's hard to find those ideas, those insights, and that expertise. And of course, if we start generating all this content, we certainly want to retain all those ideas, those insights, those concepts on an ongoing basis so we can call upon it at later dates. Any of you working in innovation for a time will know that the ratios of implementation from generated ideas through to execution are relatively low. So a lot of what we generate won't be implemented. Doesn't mean it's a bad idea. We're going to want to call upon that knowledge at a later date. When technology, budgets, resources change, again, we might want to go back to that innovation repository and see what we have that we can use. So those are the fundamental assumptions that tie this all together. And for those of you who weren't on the previous webinar, the Introduction to Innovation Management, there are some key things I just want to remind people of. Firstly, the collaboration has a big, big role. What we talked about last time was increasing the amount of collaboration involved at the very front end of any innovation process, bringing different personality types with different strengths, not just the most innovative types, not just the creatives, bringing them together to start collaborating, working together early on in that innovation process. What we also address is that engagement isn't just sharing ideas. It's being part of the process. It's actually sharing with colleagues. It's helping each other. It's actually looking to improve and fix things that you can see might go wrong. It's that participating in the later stage funnel when you feel you can add something as well. And what we also discovered is that diverse opinions build better quality concepts. So we can't just develop a program that's going to appeal to the most innovative types in our company. It's certainly crucial that we do that, but we also need to look at appealing to all kinds of different types in our organization. Unless we can reach out into those corners of the enterprise, we're going to be restricted in that diversity of opinion that we're looking for. So the agenda for today, firstly we'll look at why engagement is so important for enterprise innovation programs. We'll have a look at it from the management perspective. What is it that management want to see of their organization, of their employees? Then we'll turn that around and we'll look at it from the employee's perspective. What is it that they're looking for from enterprise innovation and innovation in general? We need to look at the key blockers to high-quality engagement. What is it that might stop people from joining in and participating in the way that we wish? And then finally, we'll look at some tactics and how we can address those blockers, pulling out the lessons from the needs of the management and the needs of the employees. So let's start off with why engagement is so important. Well, let's define what we mean by engagement first of all. And here's a list which I think is absolutely crucial. Without this list, I don't think we can build a successful and sustainable collaborative innovation project. Invitees need to be happy to share their ideas. They need to be happy to actually take some time out of the day job, log on, submit their content, and then get on with the day job later on. They need to feel comfortable that that's an okay thing to do. We also want invitees to collaborate with each other. If we only have the insights of individuals, what we'll have is very low quality concepts in many cases. They won't be developed into more rounded, workable projects and activities that we can really get an understanding of. Our implementation rates will be lower. This was one of the lessons from last time. If we can get more collaboration early on in the innovation process, we can develop better quality concepts. We need for management to open up and share their challenges with diverse groups of people. Some may be reserved. They may feel unsure about actually putting out a question there that advertises, in their view, perhaps a weakness or a challenge that they face. But unless they're prepared to reach out and start asking the organization, we're going to struggle to really get a successful program established. And of course, if we generate content, we need people to look and review that content. So evaluation team members need to be able to spare time to actually consider the submissions that we have. If we open up the floodgates to new ideas and new content, we're going to have to increase the rigor and the focus that we use to actually develop the ideas that we've seen and actually start making some judgments about which ones have the best chance of success. And selectively, and this is the stuff that we're usually quite good at, we need to get individuals to help build up the best ideas into concepts and projects. So if you have a unique set of experiences or a unique set of expertise, we need you involved in the implementation, not just the generation process. Those insights will be helpful. If we can hold all this stuff together, then I think we've got a feeling that we have an engaged organization. But of course, not everybody's going to engage straight away. Those of you that have spoken to Hype before may be aware of this slide. Engagement's crucial to the sustainability of programs. It's the first challenge that innovation managers face when they look to establish online programs. Without engagement, we can't increase levels of innovation with our organization. And without increased levels of innovation, we can't increase the value that innovation brings to the business as a whole. Engagement is the starting point. It's not the most valuable point of the process. Clearly, we always have to focus on the outcomes, but unless we have engagement, we can't go to those later things. So engagement is our first challenge to sustainable programs. And of course, failing programs, and yes, some programs do fail, often start with the organization becoming disengaged. Sometimes that's down to too long to deliver business value and some other things that we'll drill into later on. And of course what happens then is we find that investment goes into areas other than innovation. But the starting point to a failing problem is often the lack of engagement. And just so that you know there's no fairy stories here, let's look at what this might look like in practice. So two very different types of program failure when we look at participation over time. The light blue one shows a big peak of activity to start off with. Everyone's enthusiastic, excited to join in. And then slowly, but then more quickly, people start to trail off. What we find is that perhaps they haven't had feedback, the program's not well aligned to what people care about, maybe the sponsorship's not good. We'll drill into the reasons why that program might fail. In the darker blue line, what we see is the program never gets off the ground. People never start engaging with it. And so some other forces are at work there. And we'll go through why organizations may experience these sorts of shapes when we explore it from the employee's perspective. We talked about diversity of opinion. What we certainly know is if we only go out to the people that we've always gone out to for new ideas and innovation, we're only going to find similar stuff to what we've always had. So a crucial part of innovation is to increase the level of diversity, reach out into those different knowledge pools, and try and find different perspectives and opinions. And what this looks like in practice is to go beyond the close network. And of course, this is where online programs have value. Often the reason why a lot of companies look to online is because they can go outside of the core department that would normally do innovation, go out to the next area of the company, look for those people that we work with regularly for a different view, and then beyond that for an alternative perspective. And of course beyond the organization as a whole to look at suppliers or customers, those people that don't exist within our organizational boundaries and perhaps speak a metaphorical different language to us. Of course, if we can pull on a cross-section of these different skill sets, different areas of expertise and different insights, then that's where some of the magic's going to happen. So going back to our fundamentals here, what we need is engagement from all of these different groups. It can be very easy to write a question that appeals to our close network, the people that we know very well, but much harder to write a relevant question to those that are furthest away from us. Unless we can write good questions, it's going to be tricky to pull people in. So this requires some thought and some insights. So engagement is crucial. We can't exploit the knowledge and expertise of our organization unless its employees are happy to engage. We need to create an environment where people are happy to engage and are happy to do so on an ongoing basis. Most companies can run a successful innovation program online for a short period of time. Doing it on a sustainable basis is more difficult because we have to adapt to a changing organization, we have to adapt to changing objectives, and we need to keep our community supported and happy with this process throughout that journey. Unless people engage, we simply can't boost our levels of innovation and deliver the greater levels of business value we're looking for. But there's a really other crucial point to this. Engagement creates new links between different employees in different silos in different countries, people with common skill sets and interests. So there's something here that adds to the greater good, increases the level of wider collaboration beyond the core innovation focus that we have. So let's look at what beliefs we need to instill to make those employees feel comfortable and feel happy to join in. We need people to feel happy and comfortable to help each other. That may sound simple, but not every organization has a culture where people do collaborate well and share. We need to have a community where people know that their idea will be assessed effectively. People are busy. Sharing something that will never get reviewed or never get reviewed in an effective way will stifle participation. We need to know that the program and campaign sponsors are taking this request for their time seriously. So senior management are bought into the fact this is an important thing for people to do, an important thing for people to spend their time on. And then at the campaign level, the individuals with the challenges, with the needs, with the innovation opportunities, they also look to focus their requests very carefully to the right people at the right time to ensure we're generating the right content and not wasting people's time. And we also want to ensure that people have a confidence that the organization wants to improve. It wants to improve all areas of the business, and they want to be part of that. Most people want to improve their working environments, so let's give them an opportunity to help with that. So let's look at it from the needs of the management. We talked about why engagement is so important and why it's so crucial to innovation. Let's look at it from the management perspective. What is it the management actually need of its employees? Well, if I'm sat there as a sponsor or as a senior executive, what I want is for my employees to occasionally prioritize helping others above themselves. So when there's a need that's a little bit different, a little bit unique, where their skills and their knowledge can really make a difference, I want to say, okay, I'm going to step away from this day job for 5 minutes. I'm going to send that email, I'm going to collaborate, I'm going to help that person because I feel like I can add something. And I'd like them to share their knowledge in detail and in line with what we care about. If I have lots of people collaborating but on things that are unaligned to what the business needs, that's not necessarily constructive. It's not a good use of their time. And those sorts of programs get shut down over time. And I want people to act in the same way as they would in a face-to-face environment, in a face-to-face meeting. I don't want the fact that they're carrying out this innovation activity online to affect the way that they behave. And when I say behave, I'm not just talking about good behaviors as being nice to each other and not being unpleasant and stomping on each other's ideas. I also mean some collaborating and sharing in the same way as you would face-to-face. Some people will be more reserved about collaborating and sharing when they do it online. I'd like to try and strip that away. And we'll talk a little bit later how we do that. If we apply that to the Hype standard process, now many of you may not be aware of this, but we have essentially a standard process built in with the software which is focused on the usual front-end, back-end innovation manner, which helps create a workflow of ideas, innovation concepts, and innovation projects. But it starts off with strategic innovation areas. And what I want to do is just go through this workflow quickly and then look at this from the perspective of the management and how they'd like their employees to interact with different elements of it. So we start off with strategic innovation areas. These are key areas of focus, key things we want to get done, key needs for the organizations. This could be innovating a particular product line or reducing costs, or it could be sharing best practices, essentially a big ticket item that somebody at the C-level of the organization cares about. And underneath that, what we see are campaigns running, questions focused around a particular topic with a sponsor who wants to get something done. And they may run many, many campaign questions or just a few a year. But the point is that they are sponsored, ask a question to a selected audience with a defined timeline of action. So we're going to generate some content, or we're going to capture some content that exists out there already. And the evaluation team are going to start filtering that down, making some judgments about what the best content is, what can be combined and merged and developed into something new. And of course, at some point we might step out of the process at that stage, but equally we may require a business case. We may need to develop that content in a slightly different way. And so this is where we would take those ideas, develop them into more rounded concepts, pull insights and innovations from other areas of the business perhaps, and ask people to begin to develop this into a much more rounded, actionable activity. Of course, at that stage we can begin to start comparing different concepts, working out where our investment should go, before finally turning it into an innovation project where we start assigning actions to individuals, setting some tasks to people, and beginning to start putting things into practice before we actually get to the point of execution. Now, if we think about this in from the terms of what we've just been discussing about why engagement is so important and the needs of the management, if they look at the employees will have a different role at different stages in this innovation funnel. So the first point is we want the employees to understand what the company wants to achieve. This is why we have strategic innovation areas. It creates a view of these are the things that we care about. So nobody can use the excuse, well, I'm not sure this is relevant, I'm not sure this company really wants us to pursue this area, because we state it quite clearly, these are the things that we want. We also want people to consider these ad hoc requests for ideas and insights. That's why we use this campaign method, which is the most effective way of generating and capturing content on a particular need or problem. Of course, we want people to share and help improve the ideas of others. This is where the first part of that idea creation and capture process is. But then once we get into the business case areas, building these things into concepts and projects, we actually want these selected individuals to share their specialist knowledge when requested, and eventually take ownership of different activities. Now the areas in the green, what we might term the back end of innovation, these are the areas that we're normally quite good at. This is the doing, creating business cases, putting concepts into projects. This is stuff that organizations typically feel more comfortable with and employees feel more comfortable with. The front-end process is sometimes more challenging, but we need to look at it in its entirety. So let's move on to the needs of the employees. We just looked at the management perspective of what they're looking for. Let's look from the audience perspective. What's in it for them? And what you're hopefully going to begin to build a picture of is what kind of tactics we can use to begin to stimulate those employees to participate and join in. So the first thing to say is employees like to have a voice. They like to actually be listened to. If they feel that they can contribute to making an improvement and actually influencing decisions, that they're actually going to be taken seriously, then that is a powerful asset. People like to be involved. They understand they can't be involved with everything, but when they've got an opportunity to place their specific skill set, their particular experience level, then it's nice to be asked and nice to be included. But of course, if you do ask them, they also want to be kept in the loop. They want to be aware of what happens next. Otherwise, it feels like dropping their insight into a black hole and not knowing or not whether you've actually helped anybody. So of course, the incentive the second time round when you're asked is lower. So giving people feedback, keeping them aware, giving them visibility of the actions that we're taking is important. Secondly, employees like to have a greater level of satisfaction and autonomy at work. Being contributing to the organization as a whole, moving it forward, increases the sense of value with people's jobs. They actually feel recognized for contributing. We need to publicize the people who've been recognized, show what good looks like. If people are spending their time collaborating, improving the ideas and concepts of others, being a good corporate citizen, we should recognize those individuals, not just the people that offer us the magic ideas that actually we go ahead and implement. Those people that are oiling the wheels, making everything better for everybody else, they should also be recognized. People like to be connected to others that have common interests and common skill sets. Of course, a big advantage of technology is that we can do that much more efficiently. So as people are participating, as they're submitting their content, pops up other people that you might be interested in speaking with. If you're in a multinational or even there's a complex organization, that's invaluable. It's really helpful to start building up those networks. Employees also like to know what the company really cares about. What direction are we heading in? What's going to get done over the next year, 12 months, 3 years? And they begin to feel more part of the greater whole. And of course, there's a sort of underpinning human motivation of just helping people. People like to help, but they don't want to do it if they feel they're going to waste their time. So from an employee's perspective, giving them a voice, recognizing them, allowing them to collaborate in relevant areas of focus is a massively motivating factor. So let's look at this from the other perspective. What are the blockers? What might stop employees feeling like that and stop management from operating in that way? Well, there's a whole range of different things that stifle engagement, and here's a quick list of the things that we see most commonly raised within our clients and others. So if people aren't aware of the program, there's no communications to make people understand that there's actually something that they can join in with, that's clearly going to undermine the level of engagement you receive. If there's no connection to the particular challenges or opportunities that are faced, it's not relevant to the individuals that you invite and ask the question. Similar to running a brainstorming session and having somebody from an incorrect department on a conversation for a different department. If they can't find a connection, they're going to struggle to participate well. Belief in the individual with the challenge goes a long way. So if you have a sponsor who has a good reputation, who offers a commitment to pushing things forward, not necessarily to implementing, but certainly to considering everything that's submitted, that's going to really help in ensuring that people participate and take the time out away from the day job. If there's a lack of local management support, so perhaps the C-level is saying, great, get involved in innovation across the organization, please share your ideas, help solve the challenges of sponsors, but the local manager is saying, no, don't worry about that, focus on the day job, that's going to hinder your performance. And of course, lack of feedback, as we mentioned a moment ago, from any previous activities is going to reduce your motivation to participate in future ones. And this is a tough nut, because the feedback really needs to come from the people that ask the question, the sponsor, the evaluation team. But of course, once they've got the ideas, once they've got the insights, they are probably motivated to go and push those forward, as opposed to spending their time getting comments and feedback from providing comments and feedback to those invitees. And of course, lack of recognition. We're not recognizing the right people at the right time with the right insights and in some cases rewards, then people are going to feel like this isn't really respected across the organization, and they're going to go back to the day job. And of course, everybody wants to be part of a program that's successful, and few want to be part of something that's failing. So actually sharing visible success stories is going to be a big benefit in actually promoting engagement. But not showing visible successes is really going to undermine people's confidence and belief in whether this is really working. And this is a significant issue. In the innovation world, things can take many years to come to fruition. So if we're only focusing on innovating the product, when the product's going to take 3 to 5 years to come to market, where are our success stories? Maybe we need to focus on innovating a wider brief of aspects of the business, and more on that in a moment. Let's look at the relative impact of these things. So that list, what we looked at, is how much they boost participation versus other things, and what's the severity of the impact of those things if we don't do them. So before we even start, that's the staging phase. We have awareness, we have a good sponsor, and we have good connection to the question or the need. Those are going to be big motivating factors. But likewise, if we don't make people aware, if we give no belief in the sponsor, or the sponsor is not offering any kind of commitment, and there's no connection, that's going to be a big demotivating factor. So what you can see here is that some people, they will look at a particular question or a particular need, and they'll have a very green experience. They'll be aware, they'll feel good about the question, they'll feel good about the sponsor, and they'll join in. There'll be others that say, okay, I'm aware, I know the sponsor, they're a good person, I believe in them, but actually there's no connection to the question or need. That's going to stop them from participating, and that's understandable. And the size of these blocks are relative to each other. And so once we get into the live phase, this is where the awareness piece is interesting. We can get away with not having everybody aware, because if we can engineer ways of virally spreading the message to the employees across the organization by actually giving people permission to participate, but also allowing them to see what others are doing, and asking those that are already participating to begin to promote their ideas, their insights to their colleagues and friends, that's going to create a viral spread of enthusiasm and interest in this program. The peer-to-peer based connection to this process is more important in some organizations than the awareness and the top-down management. can't ignore top-down focus, but the trying to engineer a viral spread of enthusiasm for this is a very helpful thing to do. Then once we get into the idea of processing and implementation, we mentioned feedback before. Not getting feedback on your content is going to be an absolute killer. Recognition is clearly important, and in some cultures, perhaps not so much in the knowledge management, knowledge worker space, rewards may still have a role. And of course, finally, success stories, sharing them is going to have a big positive impact for you. This is a really useful checklist once you start running campaigns and asking people to engage. You know, have we got awareness? Have we got a good sponsor? Is the question relevant to the audience that we're asking? Have we given people permission to participate at every level? So the middle management on board with ensuring that their groups, those divisions, are supportive of allowing people to join in. Do we have a process to give feedback? Have we got an evaluation team that can actually offer that sort of feedback to the people that have participated? How are we going to recognize and reward people? And how are we going to share success stories at the end of the day? If we can get those things right, then we're in a slightly good place. But it's not a complete picture. So let's look at finally the tactics to boost engagement more widely. And this is really building and pulling all of these different things together. And what we find is that there are 4 key elements to sustainable programs. The first one is communications, and we'll drill into that into a second. Making sure both at the top level we have support from the corporation. At the middle level we have middle management support, encouraging enthusiastically their groups and teams to join in. The bottom level, employees encouraging each other to join in. That's going to be a very powerful way of making sure that people join in on a long-term sustainable basis. But it's not the only aspect. Innovation is often run by a relatively small number of people, or centralized innovation anyway. If we can begin to grow our innovation community of people that love the process, that love getting involved, but also of innovation advocates, that's going to be powerful in making sure we have individuals spread out through the organization. They're going to help us out. They're going to act as cheerleaders for the process. They're going to encourage people to join in. We also need to give the program as broad a focus as possible. Now, I'm not saying you go and innovate everything on day one, but if we just innovate the product, we're going to be limited in our audience. We're limited in the level of engagement we have, and we're going to be limited in the diversity of opinion that we generate, which is going to then flow through to the end product that we face. So if you think about looking at a product, and sure, we need to innovate it, but think about maybe how we innovate it from a marketing perspective. How do we innovate our sales model for it? How do we innovate our cost model for this product? These elements will pull in different aspects of the organization and create greater levels of innovation. So even within the product space, we can broaden it out. Increasingly what I'm seeing is that organizations are looking to innovate everything. So they're looking at cost reduction, they're looking at risk reduction, they're looking at sharing best practices, looking to innovate the entire business using these sorts of tools to bring in different groups of people at different times. And of course, if we can drag people in, perhaps 4 campaigns on financial services, and we bring the finance people into that process, suddenly once they're used to it, they're used to collaborating with different people, they'll feel more comfortable working on topics slightly outside of their normal area of comfort. And the final one is actually sits as a sidebar to everything. So the first 3 we can look at repeatedly. The final one is the iterative step. This is the bit where we look and monitor the data and the performance of our program to date. So we look at, have people participated, to what level of quality, from what divisions, which areas aren't participating, which ones aren't joining in. It's very normal to have patchy engagement. But unless we're watching that and trying to address it by using different tactics, looking at our communications within those areas of non-engagement, and making sure we have campaigns that are relevant to those groups, then we're going to struggle to keep pushing the engagement curve. So actually using the data that's available to us, both from a participation sense and also from an innovation value sense, looking at what our portfolio is worth, whether it's growing over time, if it matches the strategic innovation areas we have, it's going to be helpful in reinforcing the focus of the program and pulling the right people in. So let's look at the first 3 of those in turn. And the first one I want to look at is communications planning. And this is a secret checklist that we use to help our clients begin to build more effective communications plans. Some of you may have seen this before. There's no rocket science here. But this is a little list that an invitee will check through in their own mind before they choose whether to participate or not. And it's very simple. And it's questions like, is this a good use of my time? I'm being asked to take a step away from the day job, so does this feel like something that's worthwhile doing? Am I going to help somebody here? Is this useful to the organization? Is it constructive? Am I allowed to spend a little time away from the day job? Is my manager okay with me joining in on this process? Will my contributions be taken seriously? I don't want to share stuff if someone's going to stomp on it. I don't want to share stuff if people aren't going to evaluate my content well either. And I also don't want to wait years to find out if something's happened. I can understand perhaps that innovating a new product may take many years, but I do want to see what the progress is. Now this secret checklist is very, very helpful because very few invitees will tell you everything that's on this list. Often the common response to why didn't you participate is, I didn't have time. Well, that may or may not be true, but these 6 things certainly make a big impact on whether people choose to participate. I often find if you get the right question with the right sponsor to the right individual, they'll always make time. But they need to have a set of beliefs there that are really constructive, as we addressed earlier on. So when we do our communications planning, we begin to start thinking about how we write questions, how we raise awareness, how we market these programs, whether we run webinars or whether we run town hall meetings. We want to use this secret checklist and try and build in a set of messages that foster those beliefs that we addressed earlier on. So someone has confidence that if they did this, it could actually help somebody. We want to make sure people are aware that the company supports the individual spending time away from the day job to help innovate. We want to make sure we spend time with the middle management community, ensuring that they understand the value of this process and are happy for their teams to join in. If we only ever do innovative work in the big blue sky, the big 10-year plan, the 20-year plan, then middle management are going to struggle to get on board. They're going to be interested in things like profitability and costs and risks. And those sorts of topics, maybe we want to run in parallel to make sure that they're on board and supportive of the process overall. We want people to see that actually from the participation of others that this has been taken seriously. So their friends, their colleagues are actually joining in. We actually have a tool called community graduation we use to foster that. And I can see there's a process for reviewing content and reviewing it well. So we're actually going to tell people when we talk about inviting to join in what that evaluation process is going to at least look like, so they feel that there will be a next step. And they can understand the timelines you're working to, and they know when they'll hear about what those next steps will be. People understand some things may take time. They just want to know where things are. So if we use this secret checklist to try and foster that set of beliefs on the right-hand side, this is incredibly helpful. So if we look at the relative impacts and the communications piece in specific terms, we can then begin to build a plan. So what I'm going to look at is the individual elements that have the biggest impact on communication. So awareness. What are we going to do to market the program? How are we going to get the message out? Are we going to use a viral approach? Are we going to use a top-down approach? What's the right technique for this particular organization, this particular culture, and a particular set of objectives? How are we going to communicate from the sponsor? Are they going to issue requests themselves? Are we going to do it automatically? How are they going to get the message out to their peers and colleagues to join in and make sure that many people have a resonance with this particular question and challenge? How are we going to make sure that people know they have permission to participate? And the biggest issue here, of course, is middle management. How are we going to address that group and make sure that they're supportive? Of course, then there's feedback. Do we have a technique and a plan in order to give everybody that joins in clear, good feedback to ensure that every time we run a campaign, every time we ask for people to contribute, we give people feedback so people have confidence that things are happening? It's a core piece of the governance puzzle that a lot of organizations struggle with. How are we going to recognize people? How are we going to communicate that people have been recognized? Going back to what I said a moment ago, if we only ever recognize the individual that shared that one great idea that was put into action straight away, that's going to stifle a lot of the other good behaviors that we want to encourage. People being good corporate citizens, helping each other, connecting individuals. We need to recognize everybody that has a constituent, a positive impact on the program as a whole. And the same goes for rewards, of course. And finally, success stories. How are we going to get those out there? Are we just going to issue automated communications? Are we going to do a big bang every quarter? Are we going to try and put that message out there with an innovation advocate community who can begin to share it with their own networks? Often one of the most effective ways of sharing stories. So let's look at it's in a similar way looking at building a community. Less areas of impact here, but still important. If we have an awareness program that runs continuously, that doesn't just assume that just because we've launched the program everybody's aware of it, it actually rigorously reinforces on a semi-regular basis that this is important, we want people to join in. So new joiners are aware of it, if we have acquisitions they're aware of it, and people that just ignore the messages the first time around, still eventually we get to them. This will help us build a community of advocates. What we often spot is a top group of people, innovation enthusiasts, people that participate all the time. Once they get involved in the process, they just love joining in. If we make people aware, we get a greater chance of pulling those enthusiasts in and then using them perhaps as formal innovation advocates later on. If we actually begin to engineer peer-to-peer connectivity so that individuals pull each other into the process, again, this is helping to build a community. I can see what my colleagues are doing. I can see what my friends are doing. I'm more interested in participating because they're taking part as well. And then recognizing, as we said again, these good corporate citizens, that people are just making everything better for everybody else. And finally, sharing the successes through this innovation advocate community, ensuring that they put the messages out there as part of their conversation set, just talking about the things that they've seen done and the successes that they've seen. This is a very powerful way of getting the messages out there, much more so than perhaps the centralized messages we may assume. And then finally, giving the program a broad focus. I've touched on this a number of times, so I'm going to step through this relatively quickly. But unless we give different areas of the organization an opportunity to join in, they simply won't. So we only ask one type of question, we're only going to attract one type of person. So we need to go out to the various sponsors, look at the individuals that sit at senior levels of the organization and say, what would you like to fix? What would you like to do? Where could you benefit from bringing in the collective expertise of a diverse group of our employees, partners and suppliers as well, to making sure that they're aware of the power of this. I've seen programs before where lots of innovation professionals join in, but it's not until the C-level start joining in that perhaps the finance community realize that this is something that they can join in on as well. Lots of people think that innovation isn't their job. Unless we find a way of dragging them into the conversation, they're going to continue to feel that way. So making sure we have good sponsors with good questions on a variety of subjects will help. And of course that also means we need to go to a different group of people to ensure that they have permission to participate as well. They may naturally feel less like this is something for them. And again, seeing your peers and colleagues, if we have our friends from finance participating, our friends from sales participating, our friends from marketing participating, suddenly we have this rolling ball of momentum where suddenly everybody's participating and you can only use the excuse, well, I'm not sure it's for me. And of course the success stories are even more important here. Quite often if we have a broad portfolio of different innovation activities, it gives us more to shout about. Innovating a process, perhaps taking a week out of something that takes 3 months, is something that's usually quicker to do than innovating and creating a new product, which may take 2 to 3 years. So we have a broader portfolio, we'll have a broader set of success stories, and that, again, will help move that ball a little bit faster. So just to summarize, to help develop a sustainable program, sustainable engagement, you've got to look at each of these different elements. So firstly, communications. Feedback is important. It's crucial to make sure that people that do join in keep joining in. We need to monitor the progress of the program as a whole and share success stories to keep making people aware this is a successful program that they should be a part of. We need to develop an informal network of innovation advocates, and we'll perhaps run a webinar on this topic at a later date to talk about it through. I think it's an area that a lot of organizations could benefit from. We need to ask them to help us look for innovation targets, to help understand the different parts of the business, but also for them to start filtering out those success stories locally to encourage participation from every corner. We need to look and give the program a broad focus, so we don't just focus on the same types of questions every single time, the same types of challenges. This will help bring in different groups of people at different times with different skill sets. And whilst they're participating in campaign over here, they may also start participating in the ideas and insights over there. So getting them into the process is crucial. And then the iterative loop, using the data, monitoring the changing behaviors, looking at which groups are joining in over time is going to help us set the tactics, the type of questions that we ask, the types of campaigns that we run, the types of focus that we give our program in order to make sure we drive the business value that we hope to see. So just to summarize, top-down and bottom-up messaging is both helpful. We need the top-down to give the program credibility and to give people confidence that real action will happen, but we also need the bottom-up messaging to make sure that people see each other participating. We foster that viral confidence and belief in the process using various tools and tactics that we have both inside the software using community opinion, but also outside the software using innovation advocates. Build your plans to mitigate the employee concerns. If you think about all the reasons why someone might not join in, it's going to be very helpful to create a plan that focuses on mitigating those issues and removing as many of those blockers as possible. As I said, people are naturally motivated to want to help. They want to have a voice. They want to join in. So let's just give them a vehicle to do that. Keep the focus broad. We spoke about that moments ago. And get that diverse group of innovation advocates established. But keep looking, keep monitoring. If you keep watching what's happening from a funnel value perspective, from an engagement perspective, it will help you set the tactics for the next 3 to 6 months. As soon as you stop watching what's happening, that puts your program at risk because the culture changes, the situation changes, and you're no longer necessarily able to set the tactics as effectively, and that can cause you some challenges on engagement. And for those of you that are interested in that particular area, I'd encourage you to take a look at the Swisslog case study on our website. It's also listed on innovationmanagement.se on developing a culture of innovation. So thanks ever so much for your attention. We have a little time left for questions. So feel free to start submitting your questions into a little question box on the right-hand side, and I will try and address them as well as I can. So just bear with me a little moment as we go in. So my first question is top-down and bottom-up. Which one works best? Well, in our experience, they're both necessary. If we look at the bottom-up, those ideas that are promoted most heavily are the ideas that perhaps reviewed first. That is a very helpful way of promoting more of a viral spread of enthusiasm for this kind of topic. Equally, this community of innovation, but often develop a little bit over time, I think is crucial. So ensuring that we look at who's participating at a high level of engagement, participate at a high level of enthusiasm, going and reaching out to that group and saying, would you like to join in as advocates? Would you like to help establish this program more sustainably? Is a worthwhile thing to do. So I think we'll follow up on that topic in particular at a later webinar. But we can't ignore the top-down. And it can be tempting to think, yes, let's only focus on the viral options. Let's look at putting little promotional videos out there and seeing what filters out. Unless we give the program credibility with senior messages from senior sponsors and run campaigns with serious people attached to them, then people are not going to waste their time. They're not going to step away from the day job just because it sounds fun. Okay, so next question. How can we stop getting middle management, getting in the way? This is a tricky one. Now, some organizations actually train middle management. So they ask middle managers to go to specific training courses, or they run webinars, and they ask them to say, this is your role in the process. This is what we'd like you to do. This is why we're doing it. We make a specific request at that level of the organization in order to be able to get people to join in effectively. And of course, there's nothing that gets them excited more than attaching their own challenges and opportunities with this program. So often the reaction to that is to say, okay, what do you care about? Is it profitability of a particular product line? Is it the level of risk in your business? Is it meeting the sales targets that you have next year? Why don't we try and use this technique to help address those? So if we do those in parallel to the core innovation activities, of course, middle managers are much more happy to actually join in and put their own ideas and concepts forward for discussion and debate. Of course, once they're doing that, and then their own teams are participating in that process, they feel much more comfortable about this wider innovation subject and debate and topic. So what I hope is that by training them, by raising their awareness, by getting them involved in the process, by addressing their needs, it helps stop those middle managers being a little bit skeptical and cynical about their own teams spending time on this kind of activity. Now, I'm not going to pretend that that's an easy and overnight solution, but certainly those are the starting points of that conversation. And any of you that are interested in that particular area of focus, more than happy to have a more detailed offline conversation. Okay, so another question here, what extra factors might come into play of extending the network beyond the company? Well, certainly going outside of the organization complicates things. And what we actually have is a little checklist that we do first and foremost before we go into any of these factors to check that when we do go outside, it's with a good purpose and it's likely to succeed. The first check we do is there a reason why an organization or a third-party community or a customer would be motivated to help us? Is there a natural motivation, a reason why they would join in? If there isn't, we may have to create one. So that's the first factor that we would check. The second factor we would look at is, what's our relationship like with that community or that individual or that organization right now? If the day job isn't good, and we then go out to them and say, hey, would you like to help us innovate? Then that can obviously stifle the enthusiasm from the third party to join in. The third check we do is, do we actually have a mechanism, a way of actually reaching out to that group of people? Because if we're in a business-to-consumer sense, maybe we know who those individuals are that buy our products, but maybe we don't. If we're in a business-to-business company, we probably have a much better idea of who those individuals are. If you're a government organization or an NGO, you may have very little idea of who it is you want to target. But unless we can find and target those individuals or market the program in such a way that reaches those individuals, that's going to be tough. And the final key factor that we look to address is the commercial considerations. So what's the existing commercial relationship between the two organizations or the two enterprises look like, and how do we ensure that that's suitable for the type of conversation we want to have? Now, that's just a very high-level view of going outside. And again, there's a multitude of other factors that are also crucial to this, but at least gives you a starting point to thinking about the different aspects once you go outside the organization. Okay, let's see what else we have on the questions. Okay. So, questions about how do we make this real? I think what you've seen today is an aggregation of lots of different experiences from lots of different places. When we get this right, and obviously we do in many cases, then it's very exciting to see the organization really support it well. I think I mentioned earlier the Swisslog case is a fascinating insight because it gives you an observation of what a program looked like when it started, and then it failed. It actually went down. It did that first curve that you saw, where participation increased and then dropped down. And what we had to do is to redress that program, refocus it, look for some alternative campaign tactics, alternative sponsors, and alternative communication strategies in order to stimulate it. So go and have a look at that case study. It's a really interesting insight and works really well. Another great client that will be, is going to be sharing some insights on how they do this in November is Nokia Siemens Networks, who have a very impressive enterprise and inter-enterprise program. So Fabian Schlager is going to be sharing all kinds of experiences with me and over an interview on how they go about actually delivering sustainable engagement over time as well. Unfortunately, we're coming out of time. We do have some other questions, so what I will do is promise those people that have asked questions that we haven't got to just yet to I will take a look at those. I will come back to you with those thoughts and anything I can add. I'd like to thank you for attending today. As Christoph said, we have our third webinar coming up, which is on ROI next month, so please look out for that one, and I look forward to speaking to you again.